Welcome to the Sportcast. Today's date, October 26, 2021. This episode is brought to you on Periscope, on Facebook, on Twitter, and you can also check us out on iTunes. We also got a new app you can download. It is at the Sportscast. Today, this is the Tyler Turner Show. I forgot to mention that. Today, we are kind of breaking down the first weekend of the Big Ten, and then we'll talk to Pac-12. I have a guest that I believe is joining us. I'm pretty sure, pretty positive. If not, we can always do the dirty work on my end. It's Reginald Basley. He covered for the Sportscast as a contributor. He covered the Michigan versus Minnesota game, which was, I guess you could kind of say, was the top tier game this week in the Big Ten. There were some other very good games, but just kind of break down like what I saw, kind of some little takeaways from my end, and then maybe when he comes on here, I'll ask him some questions, his takeaways. I'm not going to go to that game because if we break it down with him, we're going to just regurgitate the same information. It started off on Friday, October 23rd. You saw the initial game between Wisconsin versus Illinois. It was not a very good matchup. It was not a close game. It was an absolutely blitzing by Wisconsin. Graham Mertz, former top 100 Adidas All-American quarterback out of Kansas, he was very impressive. He was not supposed to play this year. Many people had Jack Cohn listed as the top quarterback. He ended up hurting, I think, his shoulder, and Mertz came in, and Mertz looked impressive. He had 5 touchdowns. He completed, I think, 21 of 22 passes, so he had 1 incompletion. He had about as good a week as you can about his career debut was about as good as you can get. So Wisconsin, they looked impressive. Obviously, they're always good on defense. The running game, first game without Jonathan Taylor, possibly the best running back in Wisconsin history. Ron Day might say, hey, hold my beer, Marty Ball too, and Melvin Gordon. But he's one of the best to ever play for Wisconsin at the running back position. So they're kind of, obviously replacing him. And I liked some of the things that the other guys did, but most of the stuff that they did on the ground was later in the game. But obviously a pretty tired Illinois defense. Illinois' offense was absolutely horrific. They did absolutely nothing but turn the ball over pretty much. I don't think they even scored a touchdown. I believe the only touchdown was Illinois was like a defensive touchdown. I'm not 100% sure, but I believe it was a defensive touchdown. It was the only touchdown. So Illinois' offense was completely inept. So a good victory by Wisconsin. Some of the other games, Rutgers versus Michigan State. Rutgers won. I don't know what their losing streak was, but I think it was up there near 20. So Greg Schiano, bringing back that magic he had before, and he did well. He beat Michigan State. Michigan State turned the ball over a lot, made a lot of mistakes. He didn't play very well, but hey, kudos to Rutgers to go into Michigan State and win that game. Ohio State, Nebraska, I think that had a lot of eyeballs on it, the big noon kickoff. Some takeaways from that game. Ohio State is a very good team. They have a very good offense. They are absolutely excellent at the wide receiver position. There's not much you can say wrong about Ohio State when it comes to that wide receiver position. Chris Olave, Jamison Williams, he didn't do a whole lot, but then obviously Garrett Wilson he's a terrific player, former 5-star. And then Jackson, oh man, how do I say his name? Jackson Nadigbo, the freshman 5-star wide receiver, just had a phenomenal catch in the end zone, probably the catch of the day, maybe in college football for sure in the Big Ten. You didn't even see Julian Fleming. You didn't even see G. Scott Jr. You didn't even see guys like Cameron Babb. So they're so deep and they're so good at that position. Running back, not as good. The running game didn't really do a whole lot. Trey Sermon's Master T kind of shared it. Nebraska, did not look bad. They just are not as good as Ohio State. They're not even close to the same level. But I thought some good things by McCaffrey. Luke McCaffrey, he made some really phenomenal plays on the ground. Not much from the wide receiver group. Dante Manning, who I think might be their best wide receiver, actually was out for the game. Adrian Martinez did some good things. He did turn the ball over. That ended up getting run back for a touchdown, but not bad. I mean, defensively, they hit the wide receivers. A couple guys got targeting penalties, but they played hard. I was overall pretty impressed with the outing by Nebraska. I was actually surprised how good that they looked. Some other games, just to go quickly over it. Indiana, Penn State. That was a great game, and Penn State lost. They got upset. That was kind of your upset of the day in college football, let alone the Big Ten. Penn State outgained them. They had like 488 yards, 211. They outplayed them, but, they turned the ball over. And at the end of the day, they gave up a touchdown right at the end. They allowed them to score at the end of pretty much the end of regulation. They were able to get a 2-point conversion. And then in overtime, not only was Indiana able to come back, tie it, they went for 2, and Michael Penix just I'm telling you, by the hair. It could have gone either way. They call a touchdown on the field. Indiana wins. Great win for Indiana. I think Penn State would win most of those games. They were the better team, but that's a big loss for Penn State because they have to play Ohio State this weekend. They could be 0-2. That could be a rough start for Penn State for a team that had high expectations, was in the top 10, was in most people's top 10, was most people's dark horse to possibly make the college football playoff. If they lose 2 games, especially with the Big Ten only playing 9, they're not making the college football playoff. Purdue, I never like talking absolutes. I hate that, but I doubt they make the college football playoff. 9 games, I doubt it. I would doubt anyone makes it with 2 losses, but I do especially doubt 9 games. Purdue beat Iowa, big victory for Purdue. They were without Rondell Moore, but David Bell had a great game, and Purdue pulled it out. And Northwestern with a dominating victory over Maryland. Maryland starting where they left off. Not very good. Northwestern looked better, though. I mean, a little bit of offense, good running game. Their defense is always good. They have one of the best linebacker groups in the Pac-12. They probably do have one of the best linebacker groups in the Pac-12. One of the best linebacker groups in the Big Ten. So, anyways, without further ado, I have RJ Basley here. Are you here, man? RJ. You can hear me. RJ. He says he's here. RJ. Oh, I have to admit him. My bad. Still getting used to this Zoom. Oh, man. I'm a disaster. Anyways, RJ, you there? RJ. Hello?
Hello?
What up, man?
Hey, how you doing?
Hey, I'm live, just so you know. I was trying to figure this out, and I first was like, "Hey, what's up, man?" And then I couldn't get it figured out. Anyways, dude, how you doing tonight?
I'm doing all right, man. How you doing?
I'm doing good. So I'm having you on specifically. So I was going over the Big Ten a little bit. I don't know if you could hear me. Maybe you could. No, I hadn't even admitted you, so you couldn't even hear me. But I'm having you on to talk about the Michigan versus Minnesota game because I know you covered that for the Sportscast. So give us kind of your overall impressions of the game, what you thought, who you thought. Just what you thought about the Michigan versus Minnesota game. What's your impression of that game?
My honest impression of the game was I came in the game thinking that Minnesota was coming up with the upset, that Minnesota was going to show the world that they are a legit contender in the Big Ten. And I left out the game was like, okay, I still think this is Ohio State's year. to run the Big Ten again.
So how about Michigan? What was your thoughts about them as a whole? Because obviously Minnesota, that was kind of a disappointing to see them lose. Pretty much dominated on their home field. What did you think about Michigan, and what do you think about their chances of possibly challenging Ohio State in the Big Ten?
I think this is Michigan's best year. In the last couple of years that Jim Harbaugh has been there, this is probably the best year that he has to catch Ohio State. With this whole pandemic and everybody's not being able to play, there was Justin Fields. He didn't really even know if he really wanted to play. You got a quarterback right now who's a dual threat, who's a legit dual threat quarterback. You got a great running attack, which is probably the best thing about your offense is your running attack. If Chris Evans is your third best running attack, that's a pretty good running attack right there. So I would say Ohio State, Michigan, this is probably the best matchup that Michigan and that Harbaugh has had these past couple of years to face Ohio State.
Yeah, I can see how you could come to that. I was similar to you. I was impressed with Milton. I don't think he's. I mean, I don't know yet. I do walk away being a little bit like, he was good in the game. He obviously, he's a big guy. He's a strong arm. He's very mobile. He had a definite mobility that I've not seen there for a Michigan quarterback in recent years. So that's a nice little twist. And like you said, the running back, Zach Charbonnet, Chris Evans, Blake Corum, I think they've got another guy. It's good. I mean, they have a very good stable of running backs. The offensive line, I thought, was pretty solid. They only returned 1 of 5 starters, Jalen Mayfield, who initially opted out, but he opted back in. And so I, as a whole, really was pretty impressed with Michigan offensively. Now, there is a part of me that says, was it Michigan or was it Minnesota? What would you say to that? Because Minnesota did lose some good players on defense. They lost like Antonio Winfield. They lost Kamal Martin. They lost Carter Coughlin. They lost 3 or 4 guys to the NFL. So do you think that it was possibly Minnesota having those guys that left to the NFL and having to fill those holes with just guys that were maybe at the level that definitely have like a Winfield, and that possibly attributed to such a successful day for Michigan, especially on the ground?
To be honest, I say it's a little bit of both. I say it's Minnesota's inexperience of being at a contender spot, being one of the top teams in the Big Ten, being a team with expectation. I feel like that was a big concern coming in because I feel like they just wasn't really ready. I feel like you got Rashad Bateman back. You still got Tanner Morgan. You still got Muhammad Ibrahim. You got your main players on your offense. I know you lost a couple of players on defense, but you still got most of your team intact. And I really just think that Michigan really came to play. It's the first game of the season, so they're looking to set a tone. And I believe that they came out there with a game plan to show that they're not like the Michigan teams before. I've looked at a stat before. I think Harbaugh was 1-7 against ranked opponents on the road, or I think ranked opponents facing ranked opponents. And so this was a big game for him to step up and to sort of quiet the critics down. And I think that he was able to do that for this week.
Yeah, I think Michigan under Harbaugh, I'm just going to go by under him because before him is kind of irrelevant. Under Harbaugh, when they have had more talent, I think Michigan has been pretty consistent in beating teams. So if they have better guys, so you got the Jimmies and the Joes. If they have the better Jimmies and the Joes in the Jim Harbaugh era, I will say he has been consistent. I believe this is the 6th season now in beating those teams. Where has always been the test for me when it comes to Jim Harbaugh coach teams is when maybe his guys aren't better, when he does have to find a way to beat Ohio State, or, the 1 year Florida State and Florida. I think Penn State, the better teams with better players has always been the big litmus test for Harbaugh. And even this year, Minnesota, had a lot of hype, came in the top 25, obviously has a lot on the offensive side of the ball, but I still, man for man, they aren't as good as Michigan. If you look at the baseline talent of the teams, Michigan has a top 20 roster, and Minnesota doesn't. So you could call me a hopeful skeptic in Michigan. I liked how they looked. I thought Joe Milton did some good things, and if you can hit at the quarterback position, that's huge. I thought they had a good running game. I thought they were good in the offensive line. I thought they did a good job of getting after Tanner Morgan, but I still have question marks about their wide receiver group. I don't know. There's a lot of young guys over there, guys like Giles Jackson, Roman Wilson, that they're young and have some talent, but there's still a question mark. Other than Bell, I don't know if Ronnie Bell, I don't know if they bring back another really experienced, big-time wide receiver. And then when it comes to defensive backfield, they still have a very young secondary. And when I see that being problematic, ding, 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 against Ohio State, because against Ohio State, you're dealing with the boss, I think personally, and I've said this over and over again, I think that's the best wide receiver core in college football. And you're dealing with one of the best defensive backfields in college football. I mean, Ohio State's arguably DBU. So I just have questions still at those positions, and I also have questions with a Harbaugh team beating a more talented or a team that at least can match up in a physically on a baseline level with them. What do you think about that?
I agree. I would say that Michigan's best opportunity in those games is to try to get their best players in position to make plays.
Mm-hmm.
I believe I believe Michael Barrett. I tweeted this during the game. I said Michael Barrett could be a young Jabril Peppers, and if he could give them what Jabril Peppers was able to give them, I think it was 2017-ish.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. If he could give him that same productivity as far as coming up with turnovers, possibly being able to lock down that number one receiver on that other team, if he's able to work the secondary and basically be the man that Jabril Peppers was on that secondary for Michigan, I feel like they have an opportunity. I feel like if you give players like Hassan Hawkins, Charbonnet, Ronnie Bell, Chris Evans, you have to give these players the ball, and you have to give them the space in order for Harbaugh to be able to compete with the Penn States, the Wisconsins, the Ohio States, which is like really the litmus test is Ohio State.
Mm-hmm.
So, that's what I would.
Yeah. I mean, I could the one that I just am having still trouble. Like if you asked me today, I just would not pick them over Ohio. But I mean, that's to be given. I mean, I'd pick very few people over Ohio State. But with Penn State and Wisconsin, yeah, I definitely think. I mean, from a baseline, they match up, and like you said, they have a good running game, and they do have guys that can get after the quarterback, and if they can force some turnovers. I could definitely see Michigan being 8-1. I mean, that's not out of the realm of possibility. Now that 9-0 and winning the Big Ten, you never know. But I would have a hard time I'd have a hard time picking anyone in the Big Ten over Ohio State. Because even when I saw Ohio State, we can touch on that quickly. When I saw them play against Nebraska, Ohio State didn't really play that great in the first half. But they won 52-17. And when a team can play, pretty good, but not their best, and win by 35 points, I don't know. It just is a bleak picture for the rest of the Big Ten. And like I said earlier, I think Nebraska played pretty good. And I think Nebraska I think they're going to be a decent team. So it's not like they beat a scrub by 35 points. They beat, I think, a team that could be competitive in the Big Ten.
Well, I have a question for you.
Sure.
Do you believe that Ohio State is legit this year?
Oh
Do
yeah.
you believe that
Yeah.
they're worthy of that number 3 rank? They just were 5 last week, they're 3 this week. Do you believe that they're worthy? Do you believe that they are the third best team behind the Alabama and the Clemson?
I think Ohio State very possibly could be the best team. The question is defense. I still, because they lost Chase Young, they left Jeffrey Okudah, they lost Damon Arnett, they lost Malik Harrison. They lost a lot of really, really good players. Now, Ohio State recruits as good as anyone. I do a formula. You might not know about it, but I do a formula on the Sportscast for baseline talent. And Ohio State's third most talented roster in college football, just based upon recruiting rankings. So they bring in the talent. They got the guys there, but I do have some question marks about the defense. And in the first half, they kind of, some of those question marks I saw, I was like, they gave up a big play to McCaffrey. They gave up a couple big plays, big runs by Martinez. So I'm like, maybe a running quarterback, maybe a team that's able to spread them out and run after them, get them out of position because of the youth. But on the offensive side of the ball, Justin Fields is as good as anyone not named Trevor Lawrence. Is Chris Olave, Garrett Wilson, Julian Fleming, Jackson. I need to sit a day to study his name. Jackson Nadigbo. I might have said Fleming already, but even Jeremy Rucker in their tight end group, and even a running back room that might not be a J.K. Dobbins back there, but you still got Trey Sermons and Master T, who are still very good running backs. That offense and maybe the best offensive line in the Big Ten, maybe in all of college football. I think Ohio State's. I would probably put them third right now because Clemson and Alabama have played more. But at the end of the year, they only play 9 games compared to the other 2 playing a little more, so that hurts them. But I think it's a pick 'em between those 3 teams. Last year Ohio State outplayed Clemson in the bowl game. They lost, but Ohio State was a better team, I thought, overall. So I do. I think it's one game, but I picked Ohio State to win the national title before the year. Then COVID happened, and we didn't even know if anything was going to happen. But I still wouldn't be shocked if Ohio State wins it all. How about yourself?
Oh. Well, I just cannot go against my Alabama Crimson Tide, even with the injury of Jalen Waddle.
Oh, you're Alabama. Oh, you're an Alabama guy too. Okay.
Yes, I am.
The Sportscast is it's Alabama Central. Hey, I agree. Your Crimson Tide are good. Jalen Waddle is bad, but that's a bad injury. But But you have to admit, Clemson. That's a force to be reckoned with on both sides of the ball. Defense.
I believe Clemson is the. I believe when it comes down to it, and when it comes to that time, Nick Saban will have Alabama as the best team overall. When you're going in the SEC, when you're going against those opponents, I feel like the SEC always gets you ready for college football playoffs. But I do believe that Clemson does have the most put together team, the most solid balance, offense, defense, special teams. I believe that Clemson has the best overall team right now. Notre Dame, as much as I want to give love to Notre Dame at that 4th spot, I don't trust Chip Kelly. Don't.
Oh, you mean not Chip Kelly? Brian Kelly.
Brian Kelly. I don't trust Brian.
Yeah, I don't trust Chip Kelly either.
Yeah. I
actually, that's funny about that because I'm an Oregon fan. So I definitely know that Chip Kelly's not at Notre Dame. Oh, but Notre Dame. Offensively is my question mark with them. They have a great defense, but I just don't know if they can put up enough points to. I would have. I just don't see anything that is dynamic enough, especially at the wide receiver position, that I would consider them really competitive against Clemson, Alabama, Ohio State. So I think the top three right now is Alabama, Ohio State, and Clemson. And there's going to be a fourth team. We'll find out what it is. I hope it's Oregon. I hope Oregon, they play only 7 games in the Pac-12, but I hope that's enough to possibly get in, because who knows who the other 4 team could be. It could be anyone. It could be Georgia, but if Georgia loses twice, I think that'll be a little difficult. And then, I thought maybe Penn State, but I don't think that's going to be them anymore, because they're probably going to have 2 losses after this weekend. So, yeah, it'll be interesting to see what happens. And thanks for covering the Michigan game. Thanks for your breakdown of it. And we'll have you back on here sometime in the near future to talk whatever game you're going to be covering. What game are you covering this weekend?
I'm not even sure yet. I still got to look.
What is the big game this weekend? Are you covering Big Ten? Or are you covering trying to think of what's the best? Oh, the best game this weekend is the Big Ten. Penn State versus Ohio State. That's pretty much the game of the week. So that's probably what you're going to be covering.
Yeah, that's most likely, because I can't miss that. I can't.
Oh shoot! Well, I'll have you. I think Ohio State will win, but I'll have you cover it. I'll have you cover it with me next Monday, man.
That sounds like a plan.
I did. Well, thanks for coming on, and good luck to your Roll Tide. They don't need any more luck. They're rolling. So, and I'll talk to you next week about Penn State, Ohio State.
All right, man. Sounds good.
I do. Have a good one.
You too.
Okay, that was RJ covering Michigan versus Penn State, and I mean. He's Michigan versus Penn State. What am I talking about? Totally distracted. He was covering Michigan versus Minnesota. Michigan does play Penn State this year. I think they're playing them maybe week 5 or 6. I think it's towards the end of the season. That made some good points about Michigan. I think Michigan, like he said, and like I said, the running game is very effective. I liked how they were able to deploy several different running backs, and the running backs caught the ball well out of the backfield, especially Evans, who came back. And Milton's he's a dual threat guy. He's a big, physical, athletic dude, and he did some good things running. I like that aspect. I am skeptical about the wide receiver group and the overall passing attack. I know Milton has a really good arm, but let's see, is he consistent and accurate throwing the ball? That I am wait and see. And I'm wait and see against Penn State. I'm wait and see against Indiana. I'm wait and see against Wisconsin and then Ohio State. So they have some teams they're going to play. They're pretty good. So if they're 7-0 by the time they get to Ohio State, and they've beaten Penn State, Indiana, Wisconsin, and they've looked good, and Milton showed that he can run and pass and be consistent, those receivers making plays, and the defensive backfield, which I still have some question marks about. It shows that they're good. They're dynamic, and they have some studs back there. I'm still, everyone's like, Michigan, you get pumped up. They're the best. They're the world's greatest. That's what the media does. They pump them up. They say everyone's the greatest. Hey, they're amazing. They're unbeatable. But hey, let's see them week after week, game after game, playing against different teams, different schemes. Wisconsin's a tough scheme. Penn State has some dudes on that side of the ball. Let's see how Michigan does then. But good victory by Michigan. And Minnesota, they had guys out. They had some, I believe, COVID. They didn't say. People are very, coy about COVID testing. That's the big player, quarterback, or big-time player that you don't really hear much. It's like, oh, people got COVID, or they're not available. Like 10 guys are not available. You kind of got the indication that's probably to do with COVID. They were missing some people. They were missing their kicker, they were missing their punter, they were missing, I believe, a starting right tackle. I think they were missing a linebacker. So they were missing some guys, and they didn't need to miss anyone on defense, because I think their defense, for one, is not that great. Two, they were much better last year, and all those big time, all their best players, Antonio Winfield, Carter Coughlin, Kamal Martin, all were gone. So they're not that great. The best one's gone. It just made definitely not a good defense. And conversely, you're going against Michigan, who just has more talent, so they were able to run the ball very effectively. And offensively, Morgan did well. He didn't play amazing, though. He missed some throws. And Bateman made some catches, but they were looking for him. He was double covered at times, and so they tried to make other guys beat him, and no one else really did. So, let's see how this is. I kind of wondered if they're overrated. I did not pick them to win the West, and I'm glad I didn't, especially after seeing that game. I think I had them second, but I don't even know now. You have to look out for Purdue. You have to look out for Nebraska. Tell you what, Nebraska. They lost by 35 to Ohio State, but that's the best team in college football at Ohio State. Watch out. I think they're a little bit better. Yeah, I like some things I saw, and they look like a team that's hungry and wanted to play. I think we've covered enough Big Ten. Best game this week, Ohio State, Penn State. I have Ohio State. It's at Penn State. No fans. But interesting stat. So I was like, no fans, like Big Ten. No fans. No, like, just quiet, fake noise a little bit. Like, how good the road teams do? Well, the home team won 5 out of 7 games. And overall, when I have gone through weekly, I didn't go through every team this week, but I've weekly gone through just the various conferences, and it normally is about a 65 to 70% ratio of the home team still winning. So home field advantage still is a little more applicable than actually I would have thought. And it must be, you're having to travel. It's not your stadium. Maybe there's a little bit of advantage. The noise, they pump a little, I think they do pump a noise advantage for the home team. Obviously, they play the band through the speakers for like the Big Ten games. SEC, they actually have the band there and stuff. But the home team has been more successful. So while home field advantage might not be in a normal year, I'd have to really look at the hard data. It might be 75%. 70-75, and this year it's 65-70. But you're still at an advantage. The home field, if you're like, oh, it's at their home, I think there's enough. I mean, when the Big Ten, 5 of the 7 home teams win, despite almost having no fans at any of the games, I think they allowed parents there. There was some fans, so I'm assuming that was parents, like probably 150, 200 people in these big, huge stadiums. Those empty Big Ten stadiums, or I think Ohio State did a decent job of putting the cardboard cutouts like throughout the stadium. But man, Big Ten stadiums are big. They usually have 75, 80,000. Michigan, the Big House, Penn State, Happy Valley, the Ohio State Stadium, even Camp Randall's big. Lincoln Memorial. All those stadiums are so big, and when there's no one there, it's like, whoa, that's a little bit weird looking. At least the Pac-12, I don't think is going to have any fans. Their stadiums are a little smaller, except for the Rose Bowl. That's big. But the Coliseum's big. Actually, there's some big stadium out there. Husky Stadium's big. But like Alton Stadium, where Reaver Stadium, is that where the Oregon State plays? And Pullman, where the Washington State. Those stadiums aren't that big. They don't have that many people there. I think they can fit like 45 in Pullman, like 45 in Oregon State. Oregon Alton's only 55. So, put some cutouts, put them nice, have some of the parents spread them out. They will look so empty. And you can also, if you're pumping in noise, it actually will be a little louder, because actually the tighter the stadium is, not so the more broad it is, it's hard to get the noise in there. It's because so big. You have to have a lot of people in there for it to be noisy. But a little tighter, like Alton especially, is like goes downhill. It's kind of like it's like almost like vertical, the seating. That's why it's so loud. That's why they call it the Alton Crazies, and it just the Autzen, it's considered one of the loudest stadiums, and usually when they do it, Autzen Stadium in Oregon is top 5, top 10 in college football for loudness, because it's not that big and it's very like compact, and it just gets loud. So still busting in the noise, and a little bit of fans. Autzen might be a little louder than not so empty looking too. So anyways, we're at the point where Pac-12 is officially 12 days away from 12 days because they don't start on Friday. It's November 7th, 7-game season. Hopefully they're able to get through it. Little bit of news out of Oregon. They currently had 5 guys test positive. I believe they might have suspended practices. I don't know. Not kind of people. I think kind of the media's being left in the lurch. I don't know if that's on purpose. I don't know what's really behind that. But as of now, Oregon has a little bit of a scare. 12 days before the season. Pac-12, if they want to even have a chance at being part of the playoff, they cannot. And I repeat, they cannot miss any games. Any other conference, possibly even the Big Ten, can afford to have some guys go out with COVID. Big Pac-12 can't. That's the problem with postponing the season as long as they did and not getting off till November 7th. They give themselves no wriggle room. I think college football, because they haven't changed anything yet, and we're almost at November. We're literally a week away. And I think it's just like how many games you finish? Finish 6, you finish 10, you finish 11, you finish 5. I think that's just what the committee is going to judge you by. And the Pac-12 is probably, I would need some people to lose. I believe for the Pac-12 to get into the college football playoff, you're going to have losses in every conference. So you might have Clemson be undefeated. Everyone else has to have lost at least one game. SEC, you might have Alabama be undefeated, but you have to. SEC, I'd say more. You can't have Georgia come back and win the SEC title. Georgia will be in, and so will Alabama. You pretty much have to have everyone but the winner, which is Alabama at this point. You have to have, or Alabama lose to someone who I don't know who they'd lose to. Auburn. I really don't think they're going to lose another game. I don't think they're going to. The only loss that they could lose, if I had to predict, the only possible loss in their schedule is in the SEC championship. Georgia, maybe Florida. I can't completely eliminate Florida. Florida plays Georgia here in 2 weeks, actually. And if they beat them, then they obviously are in the driver's seat to win the East. And Florida would probably, I doubt they beat Alabama. They don't really have a good enough defense. I think they have trouble stopping Alabama, but they have some offense. They're a good team. So I don't think even with the Jalen Waddle injury that Alabama loses, but losing the best playmaker in college football, a guy who's probably going to be a top 15 pick, it's not good. It's really not good at all. So, it's not positive, but, you still got a terrific offense. You got Mac Jones, who's just playing lights out. Devon Smith, John Mechie, Slade Bolden. You got one of the best running backs in college football, Najee Harris. The best offensive line, possibly. Several NFL guys, Alex Leatherwood, to name several more. I'm just naming the one that comes off they're probably all NFL, probably all first round picks. And a good enough defense. Is the defense could play better, but they played better second half against Georgia, played better against Tennessee. You still got a lot of NFL guys, Patrick Surtain, Dylan Mosley, DJ Dale, Christian Barrymore. You still got so many great players on Alabama. I don't think they lose. I think they go undefeated. I think they beat Georgia or Florida. I do think it's Georgia. But I think Georgia, unless they somehow find that quarterback that can get them rolling, I really don't think they can I just don't think they can hang with Alabama. So therefore, going back, completely getting off subject, stay on task, Tyler. Anyways, I think you'd have to have a one-loss team other than Bama, and that pretty much is Georgia. There is a possibility that Texas A&M, and I'd have to look at their schedule. I'm not looking at it right now, but there is a possibility they end with one loss. Could a one-loss Texas A&M end up getting it as a fourth team? Maybe. Then you got the ACC. The one I immediately think of is Notre Dame. They play Clemson twice. They would have to beat Clemson. I think they're most likely to beat Clemson in 2 weeks at Notre Dame. It's at Notre Dame, and that's a game that possibly, especially if you can get weather in your favor, they have a good defense. They can run the ball. Could they possibly get the upset? If they get the upset, even if Clemson comes back and wins the ACC, you'd have to think a one-loss Notre Dame would have a chance. Now, Notre Dame, I believe, has to play Miami. I believe they also have to play North Carolina. North Carolina and Miami also have one loss. Obviously, someone's going to lose within those teams again. If I'm going to predict, I don't think Clemson loses. I think they beat Notre Dame. I think actually Notre Dame wins every other game but Clemson. I think it's Notre Dame versus Clemson. I think Notre Dame loses twice. And so that, in my opinion, that eliminates. In my head, I think Georgia, Notre Dame, I think they end up being the kind of those spoiler for the fourth team. I think they both lose. Then you go to the Big 12. Oklahoma State's still undefeated. They did beat Iowa State this week. I still don't buy them. I actually don't buy them offensively. I actually buy them more defensively. That's weird. Oklahoma State's never had a defense, but they have a pretty good defense this year. They have an opportunistic defense. They can make plays. They can get after the quarterback. But they still play Texas. They still play Kansas State. They still play Oklahoma. Then they're going to play one of those teams, or maybe Iowa State again in the Big 12 championship. They're not going to go undefeated. I hate being definitive. I'm like, no, but I don't think Oklahoma State. I actually think they'll lose twice. I think they'll lose to Oklahoma. Let's just say that one. I have them losing that. And then they're going to go to the Big 12 championship, probably play Oklahoma, maybe Kansas State again. I don't know. I think every team in the Big 12, because every other team has one loss or two losses. Both Oklahoma and Texas have two. Iowa State is two. One loss for Kansas State. Who's good? I really like what Kansas State's doing this year. And that one loss was to no, that wasn't Louisiana. That was Iowa State. Their one loss is to oh my goodness, their one loss was at home was it Arkansas State? I think it was Arkansas State. Yeah, I believe it was Arkansas State. And they got outplayed. They just got outplayed first game of the season. I believe the Big 12 champion will have two losses, and therefore, okay, so then this is my mind going through it. Penn State already lost. Wisconsin, if Graham Mertz, who tested positive for COVID, if he can play, I could see Wisconsin going to the Big 10 championship being undefeated. I also could see them losing to Michigan. I have them losing to Michigan. I think I also had them losing to someone else, but I can't think off the top of my head. Michigan and someone else I had them losing, but I had to win the West. But if they're they only have one loss to Ohio State. So let's just do this. Wisconsin wins every game, loses Ohio State. They have one loss. Georgia, 2 loss, runner-up. Notre Dame, 2 loss, runner-up. Champion of the Big 12, off the top of my head, Oklahoma. They come back, win the rest of the games, beat Oklahoma State. 2-loss Oklahoma champion, 1 loss Wisconsin, runner-up. 2-loss Georgia, runner-up. 2-loss Notre Dame, runner-up. Oregon. 7-0, Pac-12 champion. Booyah, beats USC to win it. Who do you take? Let's put 1-loss Texas A&M in there. Say Texas A&M wins the rest of the games. Obviously, doesn't win the West because they got killed by Alabama. 1-loss Texas A&M, 2-loss Georgia. 2-loss Notre Dame. 1-loss Wisconsin. 2-loss Oklahoma. I think you immediately kind of go to who won their conference. That's what I would do. Because it's kind of like, ooh, it's close. I don't know. It's all close. Well, okay, who plays in the best conference? Okay, let's who won their conference? Oregon, Oklahoma. who plays in the best conference and had the highest toughest schedules? Who played the best conference with the toughest schedules, who played against the most rated teams? Automatically, you're just thinking that you're going to automatically go to the SEC. Okay, so you got Georgia A&M. Who had the ranked victories? And I mean, at this point, I'm thinking Georgia's beating Florida. So I don't know who else. They win a couple ranked games. A&M, Florida, they maybe win another ranked game. Oregon beat a ranked USC. There's one. That's not great. Oklahoma at this point would have beaten Oklahoma State a couple times, so they won a couple ranked games. So Oregon's kind of looking weak on that end, but they have no losses. But they only played 7 games. But they won the Pac-12. Man, that would be tough for the committee. I don't know. That would be controversial because there's a part of you being like, they only played 7 games. They're undefeated, yeah, but they played way less games. And they played in the Pac-12. They only played one ranked team. How did they look? Maybe they won by an average of like 10, 12 points. They didn't dominate. They didn't destroy. They beat USC, hypothetically, 38-28 in the Pac-12 championship. I don't know if that's a playoff roster. But then you're going to give it to a 2-loss Oklahoma team? An Oklahoma team that lost 2 games at the beginning of the year? You're going to give it to Georgia? They lost twice. They didn't win the SEC, but they did lose to Alabama twice. A&M, they lost once, and they lost to Alabama. Won the rest of their games. Wisconsin, undefeated until the conference championship, lost to Ohio State. Like I said, I've already eliminated Notre Dame. I brought Wisconsin up, though, so I have to bring in Notre Dame. Notre Dame, they beat North Carolina. Well, I don't know if they played North Carolina. Maybe they did. North Carolina. Their only losses was to Clemson, the best team, in college. It'd be tough. I'm an Oregon fan. I would be like, Oregon gets in. They deserve it. And a part of me is like 7-0. They did win their Power 5 conference. They didn't lose, but they only played 7 games. But is that their fault? My hunch, Oregon gets it in that scenario that I say. Because they won their conference, they didn't lose any games. I have a hunch. And because you can even say Oklahoma compare it, well, did Oklahoma lose once in those 7 games? They lost twice in their first 7 games. Did Georgia lose in their first 7 games? They lost once in their first 7 games. Did Notre Dame? Notre Dame would have lost once because they'd have lost to Clemson. Wisconsin, no. But Wisconsin's only played 9 games, so they didn't even play many more games. So, when A&M, they lost their 2nd game. So when you break it down to maybe that, and that's what you'd have to do, first 7 games, Oregon's undefeated. That won them their conference title. Anyways, at the end of the day, I don't think the number 4 team is going to be able to hang with the top 3. I truly believe the top 3 teams in college football is Alabama, Ohio State, Clemson. If I was going to gun to my head today, who do I pick? Man, don't shoot me, man. Come on, put the gun away. No, man, right now, I put myself on the spot. Why did I even put a gun in my head? So violent. Man. Because I want to say Clemson because they're all around. You have a great defense, great defensive line, terrific cornerbacks, best quarterback possibly in college football, great, one maybe the best running back in college football, good offensive line. I want to say they're the most complete team. Dabo Swinney, they've won 2 titles in the last 5 years. But I always am like, they don't play anyone. But at the same time, they've been to the college football playoff 5 years in a row. They've played the national title for 5 years. They've won it twice in the last 5 years. So who cares if they don't play anyone? They still beat good teams when they play them. And by the time they play for the title, they'll obviously play Notre Dame possibly a couple times, or in North Carolina, Miami. And they have beaten Miami. Miami's a top 15 team right now. So I want to say Clemson, but then I just love what Ohio State has at wide receiver and dynamic quarterback. If he's not, he's passing the ball better. And if He's not throwing it. He can just run for days on you. And so that's just a tough offense. And they still have a lot of talent on defense. And then Alabama, their offense is great. Steve Sarkisian's just been great all year. Mac Jones has been great all year. Jalen Waddle injury against Clemson, against Ohio State, when you're going to have to keep up in – will that matter? For some reason, and I don't like Alabama on defense a ton. I think they're good, but I have seen holes. I have seen them look bad against Ole Miss. I saw them struggle in the first half against Georgia. So will that against Clemson and Ohio State come back to bite them? I personally would probably go Clemson, Ohio State, Alabama right now. And then fourth, I don't know. Like honestly, fourth, I think it's the teams that I mentioned, actually. I know I was just kind of like, seemed like I was talking to myself and going through these scenarios. But when I mentioned those, I actually would probably go Texas A&M, Georgia. I would lean Georgia to be the number 4 team. I think they have the best defense in college football. They just don't have it at the quarterback position. Stetson Bailey will not win your national title. I don't think Stetson Bailey, because of him and because they play in the SEC, if they play in the Pac-12, Stetson Bailey could take them to the playoffs. If they play in the Big Ten, he could take them to a Big Ten championship game. They probably wouldn't be Ohio State because of the quarterback position. But they have a good defense that can give anyone trouble, and they have the athletes. I could see Georgia be. I think I would put Georgia fourth, but I honestly think they're going to lose to Alabama again, and I think 2 losses, not winning your conference. Man, they have to hope that everyone else, for them to make it with 2 losses, not winning their conference, they would have to hope. Big 12 has to have a 2-loss champion. ACC would have to for sure have 2 losses outside of Clemson, and Pac-12 probably could not be undefeated. I know, that's crazy, right? Pac-12, you're like, no, they get no a 2-loss Georgia. I do not. That's not my champion. I do not think. And if USC or Oregon finishes undefeated, no, I don't. I really don't. So pumped. Pac-12's almost here. Boom. First week of the Big Ten. We have a good week this week. The big games, Ohio State, Penn State. Obviously taking Ohio State. Other good games. You got Michigan State and Michigan. Michigan State's not any good. I think Michigan really rolls in that one. Purdue against Illinois. I liked what Purdue did. They didn't have Rondell Moore, and they still beat Iowa. I'm going Purdue in that game. Wisconsin and Nebraska. I would have said Wisconsin, but if Graham Mertz cannot play, he supposedly tested positive for COVID. If he cannot play at Nebraska, Nebraska looks a lot better. That could be an interesting game. If Mertz plays, I got Wisconsin. If Mertz doesn't play, I am actually going to take Nebraska. As of right now, he tested positive on his initial test. I believe they do another test, and I believe if you get like 2 negatives, it outweighs the positive. It's 2 or 3 negatives. But if he is positive on the other test, then he will not be playing, and they will be on the 3rd-string quarterback, because remember, Jack Cohen is supposed to be a starter. And I really do believe at that point Nebraska wins that game, which would be huge. That would be a huge victory. And honestly, who knows? At that point, could Nebraska win the Big Ten West? Maybe. Northwestern at Iowa. Northwestern looked a lot better. Iowa doesn't look that good. They had a rough offseason. I'm going to take Iowa, but I'm not as confident with that as I would have been. Indiana, Rutgers, great story. Rutgers getting that victory. Yeah, I love that. I like Indiana. I think Indiana is a pretty good team. They got outplayed by Penn State, but I still think they're a good team. I still like Michael Penix, the quarterback. I still think they have some good pieces on offense. I still think they have a solid defense. I think Indiana wins that game. Ohio State at Penn State. Penn State's going to, I think, come out and play, and I think they're going to give Ohio State as good a shot as they can give them. Do I think it's enough? No, I don't. I just think Ohio State's better. And that's it. That's it for this week. Then next week, it's going to be Big Ten, Pac-12. Next week is probably going to be very Pac-12-centric. We're going to probably hit up. I'm going to be writing a few articles. I'm going to be writing how I rank the position groups in the Pac-12. I did that for the Big Ten. I already have it completed. I believe Oregon wins the position ranking, overall rankings. It's close between them and USC. And I also have the ranking of the top 25 players in the Pac-12. I believe actually SC has the most in that, followed by Oregon. Anyways, guys, check out thesportscast.net. That's where we have all the articles. Check out our app on iTunes. And once again, like us and follow us on YouTube, Twitter, and we will break down all the action we can get to you. And me specifically, I'm talking to you about the Big Ten and the Pac-12. We had RJ on this week. We'll probably have him on next week to talk about Penn State, Ohio State. I might try to get a Pac-12 guy on next week too. That's another option. I might try to get someone in the Pac-12 country to, banter back and forth. Let's see what we got with some data, see who we like and who we don't like, and what we project going forward. All right, folks, have a good night, and God bless.